All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dennis Misigoy, Libertarian for the U.S. Senate here in the state of Florida. Back again on another Thursday afternoon for another live stream. In case you didn't see the posts last week, we didn't do a live stream on account of the fact that on the same Thursday I actually also did an interview. It's posted online on his channel, David Sparia, who did the interview. I believe it's the Radical Independent. You can find a link to that. Actually, something I want to mention. If you didn't get to see that interview and you want to see that interview and any other past interviews I've done that have been on podcasts or whatnot, go to the website. I've added a page just within the last week. It's up at the top. If you look at the links up there, it'll say media. You can find, and then there'll be some links to a couple of the things like articles. Also, we have a link to the voter guide for the Florida voter guide for Stand for Health Freedom, a nationwide organization, endorsed me as the candidate for U.S. Senate. They're also endorsing other folks you might know, usually mostly on the Republican side, including Governor DeSantis. But check that out if you haven't seen it. There's a link to that on that page as well, closer to the bottom, where there's some articles and some candidate surveys as well. You can see how I answered candidate surveys for Campaign for Liberty, a few other organizations. I still need to add a few more, I think, that I've done and that have been posted by those organizations. So keep on the lookout for that stuff. As well, new on the website, if you want to finally get and show off to your neighbors that you care more about liberty than anyone else, go to the website. There's a shop link also at the top. We've just got the one item right now, which is the yard signs. But if you guys want to see something else, if you want something else to show off support, let me know. We'll get the design put together and out there. If you want, what do you want to have? Like a T-shirt, a bumper sticker, a hat. Our bandwidth is kind of limited, so we want to do, I'd had a request a few times already about yard signs, so we got those there. So please check it out. I need to post a link on social media as well on the pages, but excuse me, it is there, so go check it out. Well, that may be true, in terms of folks endorsing the governor. The only thing I'll say is just that, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, perception is reality for most folks, and certainly the perception the governor has created, in contrast to what we've had from some of the other states. So that is, but that is the situation there. I'm thankful to get an endorsement from anybody I can. So if any of you want to make a public endorsement as well, I am thankful to receive those. So. There is a pro-freedom choice for governor, a consistent choice for governor who is pro-freedom. Hector Roos, the Libertarian candidate for governor, he's actually going to be speaking this evening at Young Americans for Liberty Revolution 22. After party, I forget the name of the event, but if you go looking around, you'll find it. There's going to be other folks, other prominent folks in the Liberty movement who are going to be down here in the Central Florida area speaking, such as Dave Smith, Michael Heiss, the founder of the Mises Caucus, and I know there's at least one other person on there. I'm trying to think if it's Clint or who else is the speaker on the plans for this evening over there. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be there this evening. I'm going to be there tomorrow, Friday during the day at the Young Americans for Liberty event. This evening, I already had a commitment, which is I'm going to be speaking at the Marion County Candidates Forum. So if you're not able to go to Young Americans for Liberty, but you want to come and catch up with me or listen to me and give my spiel, you can come out and join me tonight if you happen to be anywhere near Ocala, because that's where I'm going to be, 6:30 to 8:30. That is the scheduled time for the event. So go take a look. If you haven't seen it, you can go on my website on the events page. There's the link to the organizers page, but there should be sufficient information for you to be able to get there. And let's see. Tomorrow evening, I'm going to be speaking at another event in the Orlando area, Alianza for Progress. So that event is also starting at 6:30 tomorrow evening. So if you want to come out and join me there, they do have it's free to attend, but they do want you to go and register on the website that they have. So if you follow my website, there'll be a link to register. You can go to their site, and it's a free ticket. You just have to go in and say general admission, $0. But they do want people to register if you're going to attend. I guess things just so they have a general sense of how many people are going to be there. So, but those are events the next couple days. In addition to that, let's see, coming up in a few weeks, weekend of the 19th and the 20th, I'm going to actually be swinging, visiting my friends up in Florida's Panhandle, in Pensacola. So the folks who are up in that neck of the woods, I'm going to be there for a couple of events. Don't have them posted on the website yet. I know there are links out there. I need to kind of get my stuff a little bit organized and get that up on the website. But I'm letting you guys know now. Keep a lookout on the website for that, because those events are coming up in a few weeks, and we're going to be a part of that. So let me see, man. That's a lot of stuff that's going on in terms of website and events that I'll be at. What else do we have? I mean, there's just the normal sort of events that are going on. Like I say, if you missed the interview that I did last week, there were a number of things that we touched upon. Actually, 2 interviews last week, because on Monday of last week, I had the interview with D.L. Cummings, the Liberty Dad podcast, the new show he's doing on his Monday morning podcast, which is Friendly Fire. So talking a little more policy issues than kind of the last time I was on there. We talked a bit about the NDAA coming up for fiscal year 2023, which has been bouncing around both houses of Congress, and we're looking at a total of, upwards of $840 billion, which is absolutely staggering number. I thought it's insane and ridiculous. The last one for this year, which was over 762, I believe, billion. So more than $750 billion in 1 year for defense spending. Our new NDA includes such wonderful things as $100 million, I believe, for training Ukrainian pilots to fly F-15s and F-16s. This is one of these things that is, and if I heard correctly, I believe some of this might actually already be going on. But this is coming up for next year, where they want to allocate more funding for this. Which again, we've talked about it in the past, and I believe it's one of the top. I believe I have it actually as the top item on my currently on the platform issues page on the website. It really should be a no-brainer that the top objective of American foreign policy right now really should be to avoid needless wars, and certainly you want to avoid needless wars with nuclear-armed nations, powers, if you will. Russia certainly isn't a military superpower anywhere near the vein of what they were as a part of the Soviet Union, but and they spend less than 1/10 of what we do as a defense budget annually, but they are still, as a legacy of the Soviet Union, they are still in possession of the next largest nuclear arsenal in the world, which means that if we escalate a conflict and we end up getting into a direct, open military conflict with them, there is a chance that it can go really bad, because obviously we would outmatch them in conventional weapons, and I don't think they would simply just accept losing if that were the case. So, and that's a point where you make people desperate, and that's really the only situation where I could see those kind of weapons actually being used in a military conflict. There's nobody, we always stoke these fears about foreign powers, and in particular people who don't have nuclear weapons getting them, as if they're all a bunch of loose cannons. But we can be trusted, and our allies can be trusted. But I can't help but think back to the build-up to the Iraq War a decade and a half ago, or more, actually, closer to 20 years, actually. In that buildup, when we would hear President Bush and his surrogates, going out there saying, we can't wait, the evidence of Iraq's WMDs may come in the form of a mushroom cloud, which was obviously quite a load of nonsense. But, this is a situation where we actually do have, here's the country with the next biggest nuclear arsenal in the world, and we are, rather than trying to diffuse a conflict, rather than trying to de-escalate a conflict, we are fanning the flames, throwing fuel on the fire. Every analogy you can think of. And I was listening to I think it was a recent interview on Scott Horton's show, and just imagine if while we were in Iraq, Russia was sort of openly saying, oh yes, we're going to fund these insurgents and these kind of resistance people. We're going to openly fund them and give them all these weapons, and for the purpose of trying to do harm to the U.S. so that the conditions get so bad that the U.S. ends up going through regime change at home. Think about how we've already reacted at the thought of any of Russia or any country interfering in our elections, much less something to that degree. So it really is quite provocative what we've already done and continue to do. But even if you're not a hardcore non-interventionist and as committed to peace, I think, well, let me just take a step back. Even if you're not, excuse me, looked like we had a little hiccup there on the connection. Even if you're not a non-interventionist and committed to pursuing peace, we are, man, our connection is breaking down. So I don't know how much our connection is taking a hit, guys. I may have to draw this one to a close sooner. I don't know why my wire's not picking up here, but so let's see. I don't know how badly this is getting cut out over here, because it looks like from my end stream is dropped a few times. So I don't want to get too verbose, but even if you're not a non-interventionist, committed to peace in the way that me and a lot of other libertarians are, just from a perspective of geopolitical strategy, you would think at a bare minimum, well, if we're in this conflict with Russia and we've got this thing going on with Russia over Ukraine, and yes, Russia are the ones who invaded, they certainly bear the responsibility for doing that, but it didn't happen in a vacuum. There's a lot more to be said about it. There's other people who can explain it a little bit better than probably I would be the one to do it. But that said, if you're going to be in this sort of conflict with Russia and pushing all these buttons, well, at the bare minimum, you would think from a geopolitical strategy perspective, you would then want to make sure that, well, we're not creating other allies for Russia or enemies for ourselves at the same time. Certainly not powerful ones like, guess who? The next biggest spender when it comes to military/defense spending in the world, and also nuclear armed power, China. Instead, we've got Nancy Pelosi going to Taiwan, and again, there's a sense or a perception that is that folks attempt to impose that those of us who don't want to antagonize conflicts with other countries are sort of not caring about the plight of those who might be victims of those countries. I think it's quite the opposite. And I think it's very well described by some of the other folks in the anti-war movement we're talking about, in particular the Ukrainian situation, because the U.S. motive there is not to save Ukraine from Russian influence or any of that. It is to bleed Russia. And a lot of we've had foreign folks in our foreign policy establishment, in our legislature, who've kind of openly stated this. They've kind of gleefully, going back even to our incumbent Senator Marco Rubio, who even before the Russian invasion began said that if the Russians invade, or when the Russians invade, they should face a protracted, insurgency and this extended conflict. So, and like I say, the way some other people have described it, which I think is quite apt, is that America is committed to fighting Russia down to the last Ukrainian. We are using them, taking advantage of them, and exerting undue influence on their government in order to take advantage of these people. It is them who are getting killed, them on the front lines, their country that is getting destroyed, that is getting blockaded, while we sit back. And the American people are certainly getting poorer because, we're a bunch of our money is being spent, whether directly taxed or inflated, to go and pay for so much of what's going on there. But the but what we're suffering here doesn't compare to what they're suffering there. Even if the American people are suffering because of it as well, but the decision makers in our country, the people in power, leaders in Congress, or obviously those connected with the military-industrial complex, they're not suffering. They get to do this stuff, and it's easy to give away this money and spend it on all these things because it ain't coming out of their pocket. So obviously we need a reimagining. We need a complete overhaul of our foreign policy. This is part of the reason why folks like myself, like my friend over here, Joe Hanoush, who's on the comments, running for Congress as well, the U.S. Congress. We've got another good candidate here in Florida for the U.S. Congress, Frank Kraft. Part of why a lot of us are running is because we want to see this come to an end. We got to draw the line somewhere and not continue down this path. Like I said, even putting aside the non-interventionist stuff, just from a normal sort of strategic view of, well, how do we advance our interest or our objectives here if our objective really is to beat Russia? It certainly isn't to start a battle on a second front with China and sort of pick another fight there. But that seems to be what we want to do, or certainly what at least some elements in our government want to do, certainly elements within the establishment who want to push those buttons. To what end? You can only guess, I suppose. You can look at the evidence, look at the history, and draw your own conclusions. So, there's so much to be said and so much to do with regards to this. It is really one of these issues, and as David Sparia said in the comments over here on the Facebook side, foreign policy is domestic policy. We need diplomacy and restraint, and it's telling that it wasn't really until dealing with the Brittany Griner situation that I believe Blinken was finally talking to Foreign Minister Lavrov of Russia. They hadn't talked since before the invasion, and that tells you a lot of what you need to know about their interest in diplomacy and diffusing the situation, in reaching a peaceful settlement that saves as many Ukrainian lives as possible. That's just not the objective here. The objective is quite something different, and is, I would say, very much opposed to the objective of saving Ukrainian lives. And yes, man, we can do another video. I apologize not getting back to the email on that, but I will. And let's see, what else do we have? I got a kick out of a quote I saw from one of the Fed presidents. I don't know from which branch of the Fed, or which of the Federal Reserve banks, I should say. But this is Mary Daly. I don't feel the pain of inflation anymore. I see prices rising, but I have enough. I don't find myself in a space where I have to make trade-offs because I have enough, and many Americans have enough. I mean, I don't know what qualifies as many, but I can tell you that many, many, many more Americans are struggling. Many, many more Americans are not like Fed President Daly, who is pulling in more than $1,000 a day. In terms of her salary, working there. And again, we can get into the debate about whether the Fed and being a part of the Fed and it is quite a government job per se. The Fed's status as being part of the government or not is certainly quite nebulous, but certainly not a part of a constitutional government. Not our Constitution. It doesn't authorize a central bank. It doesn't authorize anything the central bank does, or for Congress to charter a central bank in the way that it has, both here and in previous examples of the prior banks of the United States that existed way back in the days of Andrew Jackson and Thomas Jefferson. So, let's see. But it really is demonstrative of the disconnect that these people have. The people who have so much power making these decisions about the money that you guys depend on, that all of us depend on for every transaction we make. One half of every transaction is money, is cash, is the U.S. dollar for us here in this country, and these people manipulate it to support their own agendas or the agendas of Congress, to facilitate that stuff where they could never raise the amount of money they need through taxes. And this has been a long ongoing thing, and again, it's another example of part of what needs to stop, because ultimately it is the people, the average person, who suffers by having their savings and their wealth depleted. The prudent thing, what should be to do to save your money and to be frugal, is undermined because of the monetary system we have, and it shouldn't be that way. People should have the freedom and the ability to do that, and they don't. The way that our monetary system is set up, and it needs to change. That's another one of these things. That's why one of my biggest issues is monetary freedom, getting away from this, getting rid of the Fed, and allowing, opening the doors as wide open as we can for alternatives from the free market. We've got so much nowadays. We can certainly embrace the American traditions, which were gold and silver as legal tender, but we also have new alternatives such as cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin in particular, I think, is really one of the best fits because you have a fixed supply. It can't be inflated by any means. So once you reach that, that doesn't prevent any sort of volatility, but it does guarantee you that it can't be manipulated willfully in the way that central bank currencies currently are and have been historically. So, yes. And going back to the Brittany Griner situation, which is again another absurd thing, and certainly plenty of other people have stated this, but it is quite remarkable the lengths that our government has tried to go to already to get a famous athlete. I don't want to be too derisive in sort of willingness or unwillingness to use the term celebrity, but a famous athlete, to get them out of a foreign country where they've been arrested, essentially over cannabis possession, over marijuana possession, basically, and drug possession. Let's even say more broadly, and yet we have a war on drugs here. What about all the people who are being held, for crimes of simple possession and whatnot? Everybody who's been arrested over federal marijuana laws, federal drug laws, for offenses relating to marijuana and other drugs. Let's even go there. President Biden, as a candidate, even had some talking points about this. I'm trying to remember if I heard him saying it himself or it was just stuff that was posted out. But he tried to ride that wave as well, talking about how we shouldn't be doing this. Well, he's in the driver's seat, man. He could literally deschedule. He could deschedule marijuana from the under the Controlled Substances Act immediately with no oversight. The Drug Enforcement Agency and everybody, they all report up to him. That's the executive branch. And he could quite instantly pardon everybody who's been arrested, everybody for any charges related to marijuana at the federal level. We still have federal prohibition, and like I said, all those people are still in jail. He could take care of that with a stroke of a pen. But he's been president for over a year and a half, and he's not doing that, and he's not going to do that because that's not what he's about. They say that when they're running, like they say a lot of things, like they talk about we're going to hold other nations accountable for their human rights abuses, for their human rights records. He specifically even called out talking about making Saudi Arabia a pariah, talking about China as well. Well, let's look at what's actually been happening with Saudi Arabia and policy towards there. We've got the nice photo op of President Biden and fist bumping Mohammed bin Salman. We've got us sending troops into Yemen to support the Saudi efforts there. Albeit there is a bit of a ceasefire at the moment. Precarious. We're going to see if it holds out. But and positively, there's the War Powers Resolution that's going through Congress. We'll see if it passes. The last time they did this, President Trump vetoed it to keep us supporting the Saudis in Yemen. So we'll see what Biden does, but he certainly seems willing to support the Saudis. So is he willing to use the veto to support the Saudis in this? And how much have the Saudis worried of this conflict as well? Because it doesn't seem like they're going to achieve their goals in Yemen either. So it's very interesting what's been going on there. But it's, again, indicative of the fact that what you can expect from the big party candidates, Republican and Democrat, they're going to tell you one thing when they're running to try to set themselves apart, tell you what you want to hear. Certainly for a lot of us who care about those things, such as drug prohibition, the people whose lives have been destroyed by it. Those of us who care about foreign policy and not supporting the worst of the worst human rights abuses, not supporting literal wars of genocide in places like Yemen. For all of us who don't want to do those things or want to stop those things, they throw out these talking points, and then what happens when they're actually in office? None of that. So, it's something that we need to, hold these guys accountable for, and let our voices be heard when we about it, and not tolerate it any further. We know who these guys are. This is the establishment. This is what they do, and it's only going to change if we change out the people who are there. It's something I always try to bring up the point, and I talked about this with the COVID lockdowns and everything else, that I think public pressure can change policy in the moment. I think we saw that in great degree with what happened with COVID. By and large today, the lockdowns are gone. The mandates are mostly gone. There's very little of that enforced on anyone at this point in the country. And that was made possible because of the level of resistance. But the thing is this, even if we got all this stuff done and these policies were shut down, what's going to happen in the next crisis? And we keep hearing about stuff. Monkeypox is kind of there on the periphery, and they're talking about maybe some kind of policies to deal with that, although I don't know that it'll be that'll quite get the traction they would want it to. They keep trying to frame the climate crisis in this sort of way, and you can judge for yourself how reputable you think some of the claims of stuff that they're trying to attribute to that are. But that is another thing where they're looking for an opportunity to find a crisis. And my point is that if you allow the same people who put these terrible restrictions in power, or made these efforts to usurp power in this way as a result of a crisis, or used a crisis really in this way. I shouldn't even say as a result of the crisis. They took advantage of the crisis. It is a openly said among establishment politicians, never let a good crisis go to waste. It is, if you've been listening to me for a while, you've probably heard me say this multiple times, but I find it one of the most despicable things, the idea that you're going to try to take advantage of a crisis, take advantage of, tragedies and human suffering and all of this to forward an agenda that you already had. So, but that's who we have in power. That is the establishment. And if we keep those people in power, they are going to do it again as soon as they get another chance. The only way that we get out of this cycle is by not having those people in. It seems a little simplistic, but we've got to really be willing to draw the line. We can't just nod our head, let those guys stay in power, and then when what hits the fan, then we're going to get out into the streets, and then we're going to protest, and then we're going to fight it. But how long did it take, and how much did we have to suffer? What was the impact on the mental health of the youth who were stuck at home, not able to have regular social interaction at school, or all these sorts of things? What was the impact on all the families who parents couldn't work because they were deemed non-essential? What was the impact, and how much harm was done? Are we going to wait till the harm is done again, whatever form it takes, or are we going to be proactive and not allow these kind of people who will do this kind of stuff to stay in power? We got to draw the line, and we got to start somewhere, and this is the place where I want to start. So that's my pitch. My name is Dennis Misigoy, the Libertarian for the United States Senate, on the ballot this November. We're we're coming up on time, so I'm going to end it right here. Again, check out the website. If you missed earlier, I'm going to be in Ocala this evening, in Orlando tomorrow, the Panhandle in a couple weeks. So go to the website, make sure you're checking it out. We're going to have, we've got the events for today and tomorrow posted, and we are also going to have, we also have the yard signs, so go out, grab a couple of those. We're partnering with our friends at proudlibertarian.com to make those available, so go check it out. And I will talk to you guys soon. And if you guys are coming out to these events, I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you, and if I don't talk to you soon, I'll talk to you next week. Take care.